As we get started, welcome everyone to World Usability Day 2021, hosted by UXPA Minnesota. I will be your MC today. I'm Andy Kruger, the Vice President of UXPA MN, and that was my colleague, Margaret Bosson. She's the president this year. I'll be the president next year, taking over. So as I'm talking about the board positions too, I guess I'll throw out the fact that we are currently looking for nominations for next year's board. If you're interested in serving and participating and giving back to your community, we would love for you to check that out and apply. You can definitely nominate yourself or nominate someone else that you think would be good at it. We'd love to see you in here, and you can talk to us with questions about that as well. Margaret was just talking about chat. I want to double down on that, really engage in chat. I encourage everyone, if someone, especially if a speaker says something that really resonates, you call that out. And since you can't see each other on this webinar, this is a good way to stay engaged and talk. And then, as Margaret also said, throw your questions for the presenter in the Q&A, and we'll actually use those at the end of their session. So most sessions are an hour long, and the speakers will be leaving some time at the end for that Q&A portion. So if you have questions for them, just throw them in there and we'll call them out. Also, all of you here today have a code for free attendance to our happy hour tonight. It starts at 6 and goes until 9 o'clock at Finnegan's. We've got the whole tap room blocked out. We'd love to see you there. If you're local, if you can make it, sign up, and please sign up early, not at the last minute, because that lets us know how much food we need to order for you all so that we can all have a great time. And we'll talk more about that a bit later. Talks are going to be recorded too, and they'll be shared out after. So if there are sessions you can't make it to, or you can't stay in for the whole time, don't worry, you'll get a chance to watch those. And I just want to call out the fact too that this is our second year having a virtual event due to COVID. We were hoping that would not be the case, where some of us are a little bit bummed, but on the other hand, we know that some people would not be able to participate if it had been local. In particular, we're able to bring in some incredible guest presenters that may not have been able to travel for this. And we're very excited to show you that whole lineup. But first, before we get started, I'm gonna hand it over to Lyle Kantrovich at Optum. They are our exclusive sponsor for the event, and he's gonna say a few words about what's going on over at Optum.
Thanks, Andy. Good morning, everyone. I'm Lyle Kantrovich, Director of User Experience at Optum. Happy 17th World Usability Day. It's been a great run with World Usability Day. I think as a local chapter, we've hosted events all 17 years that this has gone on. So it's turning into a long-term tradition. So I want to just talk a little bit about Optum. Optum's mission is to help people live healthier lives and make the health system work better for everyone. Trust, inclusion, and ethics are all key to achieving those goals, and those are a lot of what our speakers are going to talk about today. Our UX team here applies those principles to the work we do on products, applications, services, and platforms to make healthcare more usable, more accessible, and more human-centered. Our team is growing and is currently hiring researchers, UX designers, accessibility engineers, visual designers, and more. We're hiring at many different experience levels, as well as from senior designers in research roles to managers and even directors. So if you're interested in a new role or currently job seeking, feel free to message me on LinkedIn. If you want to learn more about that, I can tell you about our openings in our team. We've got a great UX team culture here. We have a lot of fun as well. With that said, I'm excited to hear from this great slate of presenters today. I think the programming committee did a great job of planning this event and the events later today. And hopefully I'll see some of you at the social later tonight. So thanks, Andy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Lyle. Really appreciate the support from Optum, and I'm glad you could make it to the event. We're also hoping to see you and a lot of your teammates there tonight. And before we go straight to Holly, I just want to show the schedule really quick here. It's no change from the website if you've already seen it, but just to orient ourselves, here's where we are right now. We're going to start by kicking off with a keynote presentation. Then we have a couple more talks and a lunch break. So half an hour to get away, do what you need to do. And then we'll come back for a panel discussion and then 2 more talks before wrapping up the virtual event at 4 p.m. So our first talk is by Holly Habstritt Gaal, and we are very excited to have her here. As I mentioned, she is not local. She's one of the folks that we may not have necessarily been able to bring over, but we may have. She's currently based in Amsterdam. But one of the reasons we're excited to have her is because she has a local connection here. She grew up around the Twin Cities. She attended Macalester, the University of Minnesota, and MCAD, so covering a lot of bases in terms of fellow alumni. And she is, more importantly for our purposes here today, the director of design at the internet privacy company DuckDuckGo. So better to really kick us off today with our theme of trust, ethics, and integrity in design. And a cool fact about Holly, in addition to being a brilliant designer, great speaker, really local girl made good, she's also a musician and voiceover artist. So just multi-talented as well. We're very pleased to have her. Holly, please take us away and kick us off.
Cool. My voice isn't so good today, but I'll try to get through this. Great. I'm going to share my screen here.
Oh yeah. Andy, you'll have to stop sharing.
And then I will hop in. Great. Moment.
Looks good, Holly.
You can see my slide here.
Yep.
All right, great. All right, thanks for the introduction. It's very nice. Really happy to be here today, and thanks to everybody for coming. I'm Holly, and I'm the design director at DuckDuckGo. And as Andy said, we're an internet privacy company, most known for our search engine, but we create other tools as well, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So while more recently I've worked at mission-driven companies and currently feel really fortunate to work at one of the most ethically conscious companies, that hasn't always been the case. I've struggled as a designer and with teams to fight for the right decisions for high quality craft, user-focused and ethical work to impact what we build. And I've learned a few things along the way. So while I now live in the Netherlands, Minnesota is where my family's at and where I lived for 25 years, and I still go back to see my family and play music with friends. I imagine a lot of the audience and I have worked at many of the same places and with many of the same people. And I know there's some of my friends are here in the audience as well, which I think is pretty cool. So, since this is an intimate group of fellow Minnesotans, I thought I'd get a little more personal than usual. I love the outdoors and music and robotics, and I was recently played a voiceover part in a VR multi-sensory experience called Symbiosis. These are all like very small parts and more complex things. And the reason I mention this is because this matters, because there's this personal satisfaction in doing all of these things, but they really don't happen without collaboration and community. So there's kind of parallels in the mindsets between hobbies and work, at least for me. And to get the most out of these activities, you can't just be a siloed individual contributor. We have to put something in to get the most out of them and really think about the environment and the part that everybody in the community plays to make the end product a positive one. You can't have an us versus them mindset to do any of these things. So now to get a little bit more serious, today I want to talk about rethinking our expertise and our approach as designers and usability practitioners. So we'll discuss very practical ways that you can experiment with in your organization that might not feel directly related to everyday design tasks, but really do influence our ability to make a positive impact. So let's start with the state of the web right now. And first off, I want to set the stage by recognizing kind of what we all know. There's no shortage of examples out there where product decisions didn't necessarily have the user's best interest in mind. And the audience here today lives and breathes this. So, I know you're all aware of the state of things and the effort it takes on all our parts to defend our principles and really stay positive. So there's also no shortage of critics and advice and knowledge for what the right decisions should be. I mean, there's a room full of us, a virtual room anyways. And how many of us have been these critics? I know I have been. So these particular examples, they're pretty large scale issues, but it can also apply to more isolated UX decisions like dark patterns or accessibility choices that we make every day. So critique is often from users, but also from us, the people who may be working within the places responsible. So how many of you have been able to make a difference by raising these concerns after something has been released? Raising your voice is really important and can provide really tangible examples in the moment. But in my experience, it's just really not enough. It's too late. You may have to, you have a postmortem and you say that you'll learn from this for the next time, but that still puts you in a really defensive position. You're still working against so many other variables involved that may be out of your control, depending on your organization or your role or who you're working with. I know we have people from a variety of backgrounds and organizations here today. So it's not all doom and gloom, though. At the conference today, I'm sure you'll leave feeling really empowered to keep making progress in the industry. So I'm going to touch on a number of variables that others will dive into more specifically across ethics, trust, and integrity. So there's something positive in terms of accessibility. We have both legislation and it seems more awareness of the positive return of efficient team workflows on our side. And this would be a talk in itself, but I just want to mention this to say that people are catching on that ethical design is good for business. Let me show you why it is good for business for us at DuckDuckGo. And maybe it's because differentiating your brand sends a clear message. Maybe it's because more users they have to understand the negative impact and kind of loss of control of their experience in the web these days. Regardless of the why, the outcome has come to show that this can be a positive business model. So as I said, we're known for our search engine, and we have a mobile browser and a desktop browser extension that keep you safe anywhere you browse, but we're also growing. In the works are a desktop browser, mobile device level tracker blocking, a service in beta called email protection to block creepy trackers, and more. It's a pretty exciting time. So what makes us special is that our fully remote team, our fully remote company works together towards one overarching ethically focused mission, which is setting the new standard of trust online and empowering people to take control of their information. The responsibility of making ethical decisions isn't delegated into one or two roles, like a chief ethics operator or something, or officer. It's in the fabric of how we work across all roles. It's simply a natural byproduct of how we operate. So this common mission or overarching mission, it establishes this direction or common direction and trust. So there's no question who we're building for and why. So in addition, we explicitly empower all team members to question assumptions and challenge one another to work best towards our mission. In fact, our core internal values are build trust, question assumptions, and validate direction. All roles have this memorized, so we're empowered to do all of these things. So how do we enact these values to build ethical products that help navigate unethical environments? Everything is built off the mission in the foundation. Company objectives that align with the mission. Therefore, product goals or project goals and success metrics will as well. We have a fundamental agreement about the way we work that allows us to stay focused and dedicate our time and energy for the things important to our mission. versus kind of fighting internal battles for ethical decisions. This means that by default, even the most basic interactions are designed with your privacy and control in mind. And from this way of working, this kind of shared understanding, an ethical design framework has started to emerge around common topics in the UI across our products. So as you can see in the problems column, these are really common user-focused problems that we deal with every day, such as not knowing you're being tracked until it's too late. Privacy features are hard to find. A website or app you might be using has poor privacy practices, or somebody's tracking your location without your knowledge. So every problem faced by the user in the UI can be answered with an ethical product decision. And not just can, but I believe should. So you can find this in a Smashing Magazine book called The Ethical Design Handbook that I wrote a chapter for. This shows tangibly how an ethical standard is inherent in every decision that we make, and it's weaved into the way we work. So I'm going to go through a few examples to just show you tangibly the outcome of applying a framework like this. So as a result, we put privacy front and center, and we leverage this to differentiate our brand. So this is our mobile browser. We prioritize certain features that support our mission and differentiate our brand. So let's say I'm looking for something I don't want exposed in my history. We make it clear to the user that they're in control and can burn or clear all search history easily. See the fire button below, put them in control, and it's kind of fun too. Another topic in the framework is actively defending you. So let's say that I would like to watch a YouTube video of my favorite band. So we didn't have to make the experience worse or any less relevant for the user. We put them in control and set expectations that their destination may be unsafe before they view the content. So luckily, when I arrive, I have my handy extension installed, and I know just how private my destination is once I get there and what kind of tracking might be going on, and also what trackers DuckDuckGo was able to block them. So speaking of our extension, this is how we create transparency and honesty, and we put the user in control, which is another element from the framework. We don't expect to change everyone's browsing habits, like stopping people from going to sites that have poor privacy practices or track you. We can bring safe browsing to you. We're also not against ads for making money, but are for an ethical way to deliver these experiences to our users. Another topic from the framework is protecting your location. In our search UI, again, we don't limit the experience or hinder task completion, but we tailor it for the user to have control in this example of their location. And we decide, they get to decide what happens if this happens automatically or manually to refine their results. The habits are hard to change. While our new products mean that you could just download the DuckDuckGo browser and not have to worry, it's also realistic to have a come to where you are mindset. We can't expect people to change their habits instantly. So with our extension, you can install that on any browser, but also our new email protection feature does just that. We help you use your current email provider safely. So you may open an email and not realize what's happening behind the scenes. 80% of emails contain trackers, by the way. Or you may know, but maybe you don't know what to do about it. So we allow you to generate a private address or use a duck.com address. We strip trackers from the emails sent to these addresses and forward them to your usual inbox for safer reading, say Gmail or Yahoo. And here's what it looks like. When you receive the email, we also want you to feel in control. Again, kind of referencing our principles in the framework. You see the impact we've had without forcing you to change your inbox or major habits, but we give you insight to what's happening behind the scenes in every email that you still may want to get. Take a water break here. So it's, a similar theme to how to approach change in your organization. Start by considering what habits you can change now, or which might take a longer strategy with smaller wins to achieve. So though the scenarios I showed you may be kind of this ideal outcome, since at DuckDuckGo, we start out with ethical success metrics. What I showed, I hope, was more of a tangible vision of what could be practiced or achieved, even in the micro decisions that you make in your work. It's something to aim for. So fortunately, or really unfortunately, the general public has had to begin to understand the importance of taking control of their data and experience online. They're also catching on to tools like ours. So ethical design or ethical decision making is good for business. You can see we've recently also hit some records and milestones a couple of weeks ago. All right. So as you can see, we put significant effort in the design of our organization, not just the design of our projects and our products. Therefore, these values are built into all of our company processes, from hiring practices to employee onboarding to transparent career growth to opportunities for everyone in the company to take the lead. And before I move forward, I really want to recognize that I feel privileged to work this way, but I also want to be clear that this didn't just happen organically. From the mission to the principles, the design of the organization was very intentional. And we're always learning too, especially as we grow. But what we have learned is that these intentional decisions make a huge difference. And I definitely don't expect other organizations to work exactly like this. We can all learn from one another and our past experiences. There are things I learned from agencies that I tailored for open source communities about collaboration and teaching and doing research around the world with Mozilla that I brought into growing design teams at Booking.com. Companies that have very different success metrics from one another. It's a matter of trying a variety of intentional things in a variety of places and timing around your organization and playing the long game in some and aiming for quick visible wins in others, making a difference where you can. So ultimately, I feel that the ability to make ethical design decisions is a byproduct of aligning on principles and a design team's proximity to how they're interpreted. And you can substitute research team with that as well. So what do I mean by that? In this oversimplification of a timeline, impacting from, say, this point on is obviously different than being involved in prioritization and strategy and earlier. In the end, you're a designer, researcher, a copywriter. The work still needs to be done. So it can feel overwhelming to take on more tasks earlier in the process. That might not have an impact until later, but you will definitely get that time back. So what I've done is I've broken out some specific actions into 3 areas that you could possibly experiment with that, in my experience, have kind of led to design and research being more involved upfront in defining roadmaps and hiring and really being part of making decisions and the ability to design things with high accessibility standards and with the user first and avoiding dark patterns and things like that. So feel free to try something in a category that makes sense to you, impact a small feature, a project, your design team, your greater company. And also when you're looking for your next job, if these things matter to you, keep them in mind as well. So proclamation. This is about stating what you are loud and clear. If others can't see and hear what you're doing and what you stand for, you can't build an alliance. The value you can add to the company won't be known, and you can't educate others about your expertise. So some things that I've tried are, making sure your principles are easy to find and be a broken record. You're going to find that you're going to have to repeat similar phrases and words in every meeting and apply them to everything you do. But you're not alone. You should create ambassadors within your team and outside of it to reiterate the same message. So this is all part of creating a shared vocabulary and way of thinking, so that when you have an ambassador acting outside of a safe group alone and outside of the team, they're sending a consistent message, and they should feel empowered to do so. So I'm not going to mention, I'm not going to, read the slide and go through every item on the list here, but I can share the slides later. Feel free to take a screenshot as well. Some tangible examples of how we're creating a shared language is, for example, with this design framework that I talked to earlier and showed how they directly related to our decisions in the product. Another example of this is mental models, something that works across all roles. It's really helped us to relate to one another and think more effectively and objectively. So these are great to use as tools for communication and decision making. This can also become a feeling. It's contagious and it's positive. So I'll play just 1 minute from this example that I really resonate with, the foundational work Mozilla has done with their mission and the principles, and how it sort of reverberates throughout the community. I'll push play.
I'm from Japan.
I'm from Indonesia.
I'm from London, England.
Amsterdam.
Pune, India. Italy.
I'm from Cambodia.
Iran.
I'm from Taiwan.
The ability to actually work together and form and strengthen this global community with a shared mission is key to our success.
I am Angela King, and I am a Mozillian.
I am Palore, and I am a Mozillian.
I'm Lars, and I am a Mozillian.
I'm Sasha, and I'm a Mozillian.
I'm Bea, and Mozilla!
I'm Michael, and I'm a Mozillian.
I'm Bob Moss, and I'm a Mozillian.
I am Priyanka, and I am a Mozillian.
We are about our cause and about the idea of doing things. The heart of Mozilla is a global community with a shared mission.
I am Yash, and I am a Mozillian.
I'm Talia Bobjaki, and I'm a Mozillian.
I'm Niels, and I'm a Mozillian.
I am Theodora, and I'm a Mozillian.
I am San James, and I am a Mozillian.
I am Delphine, and I am a Mozillian.
I am Tristanito, and I am a Mozillian.
Many roles, one community, one Mozilla. That's the key to what will make us successful and to have the maximum impact as we go to build the internet the world needs.
I am Galaxy, and I am a Mozillian.
All right, so it really unites a community of different roles and different cultures. It's worked really well. All right, so the next part is people. This focuses on your impact on the people who join the company and your eagerness to learn and gain value from them. So we can start with hiring. Depending on where you work, some of you may be involved in hiring, some of you may not. But if you're not, it's important to kind of lead what your team needs. And with every person that comes in, it's really an opportunity to impact the culture. These are the future decision makers of the company. So for example, defining interview questions and criteria, recommending design-focused questions for non-design roles, and recommending prospects for copywriters, developers, marketing professionals, roles outside of your own that that you're going to be collaborating with. So this really aims to start cross-functional interactions as soon as possible. And once they're hired, reach out to all new hires, say hello, introduce them to your team and the way you work. So this is a way to be really proactive to avoid any any frustration later. And it just allows you to work more quickly when new hires are onboarded to, you know, the way the company works. The next part of people is education. So something it's important for all of us to do is use every interaction as a means to include and educate others, like sharing links to Figma to people outside of your design team early and often, you know, sharing research outcome in a place where people can find it. Have an open critique, open to everyone. You know, co-plan a meeting or like a lunch and learn session with people from around the company, not just design. So, for example, you can invite somebody from outside the organization in to help you kind of amplify your message. So, for example, you could invite Sharon Morrow or somebody you meet tonight at Finnegan's to come in and talk about accessibility. So you can really use the community that you know to come in and help you out, even internally. It can be helpful for your organization just to, you know, hear a new voice now and then. We also recently had a design critique where there were more developers than designers in the room. And I thought that was amazing. They showed up and were really interested in getting involved as soon as possible. And it really shouldn't be a surprise because, you know, we are all a team. Additionally, we can use our superpower to visualize our thinking. It also gets roles excited about the work we do, and then they'll give feedback sooner. So, you know, any opportunity you have to share a demo of your thinking and your work, that's something that can go a long way. When it comes to people isn't just your immediate functional team. Think about cross-functional interactions in everything you do. So the third and final category here is practice. If you're not in the forums where decisions are made, you're going to be frustrated, and it's that much harder to make a positive impact in the things we care about for our users. So what works in one scenario might not work in another. You may need to practice, adapt, and try again. Try a different process. Try a different vocabulary. Invite somebody different into a meeting. You know, you can take very small steps, or, you know, set your goals out from anywhere from 6 months to even a couple of years. I'm going to go back to my overly simplified timeline here to illustrate something that's happened at DuckDuckGo over the past couple of years. We were identifying where longer conversations were happening about our work. Usually there was confusion, edge cases caught, requirements missing. And this was all actually really great product-related conversation. But can you guess where it was happening? It was happening too late. There was definitely room for improvement, but we had to make kind of this use case, or this state our case for why we thought that there was a problem or an opportunity to do things better. So what did we introduce? We introduced consistent exploration and review milestones across every project in the company. Process outside of these milestones are incredibly flexible, depending on the project's needs or timelines or audience. So this resulted in a realistic time to explore the problem thoroughly. So at first, you know, design didn't necessarily feel like they had enough time to do their work. So this allowed us to start with an exploration and do the work we needed to do to communicate the proposed solutions outward to the organization, and really drive the conversation and, you know, lead the narrative behind our work. It also allowed us to create moments for sharing recommendations and rationales to be discussed in depth with the whole team. So operationalizing, like, this might seem like, of course, why wouldn't you do this? But it just wasn't formalized So not everybody felt empowered to do it when, there was a quick timeline that needed to be done, or maybe design wasn't added to the conversation just by accident, or a developer wasn't. So operationalizing this was a forcing function for product discussion to happen sooner. And what this did was it left more room later for polish and sort of leveling up our quality. And that means something different for everybody. We could focus on more on things like accessibility and catching a use case that might not be optimal for one user or another. And you feel less rushed. Everyone has felt more trusted and more aligned. It's been really interesting. So a couple of things that you can try in your practice and experimentation. One is becoming more product aware. So zooming a little bit farther out from your immediate discipline. Like I said, for us, we created these explicit, transparent milestones that involved everybody. You can write a proposal for your idea, write it with a buddy from another functional team, pair up with a developer, make it hard to say no to your proposals. And sometimes by, partnering up with another functional expertise, you can really put weight behind your ideas. So by doing some of these things, you can really gain respect for the hard decisions being made. And by doing that, you'll learn how to propose something that will actually be accepted and prioritized and fit into the current objectives of the company. Something I want to talk a little bit about the last item here. This can be a little bit tricky one, and was a little bit daunting for me to approach, and can go a long ways in companies where design is new and design is being introduced. For example, I've worked places where we had a separate design brief, and it felt very much something just for design. So be careful about the vocabulary you use and whether it is welcoming. And I think there's ways to do this that still allow us to be the experts in the room, but create a more welcoming place for others to be involved. So if something is just design critique or design brief, maybe those could be, project briefs or project review at a particular stage. So that, again, was a bit tough for me to let go in some cases, but has gone a really long ways, and it ultimately ended up creating more forums for design to be involved in conversation. This part of practice is really saying show up, use repetition to learn and help others learn, internalize your actions and make them a habit, using consistency to build trust from those who may not fully understand the value of your discipline or expertise. So my main takeaway from this evolution is to practice ways to operationalize moments you need as designers and researchers to do your work well and to have an impact. So it may feel as though you're submitting to a larger, more like diluted process, but as I said earlier, you're actually creating more forums to be involved and heard. And you might also be, lifting up other voices in the organization that might be treated more as a service. So you're helping others get involved earlier too. I hope that you can find some of these ideas helpful in the way that your organization or practice works. And I believe by rethinking and re-owning our expertise and where we show up, we can further leverage our skills to make a positive impact. Thanks. I will stop sharing.
All right. Thank you so much, Holly, for that talk. We've officially kicked off. We're amped up and excited for World Usability Day now, or at least I am. We got one question in the Q&A so far, so I'm going to read this to you, and I'll encourage anyone else, if you have questions for Holly, throw them in Q&A, or throw them in the chat, raise your hand, whatever. let us see you and we'll pass them on. So this one's from anonymous attendee, and they say your talk is inspiring. Do you have any numbers on the amount of badness DuckDuckGo has removed for its users?
Oh, wow. That's kind of a hard one, actually. I mean, there's really trackers and everything you do. One stat I mentioned is that 80% of emails have trackers, and not from who you think. There's third-party trackers that follow you around as well. You could be on one website branded as one company, and there could be trackers from other parties hanging out as well, knowing where you're at, and if you open the email, and so it's hard to quantify, but I have to say that there's a lot of creepiness going on behind the scenes, that we just do what we can to make sure you know about it, and are in control.
All right, thank you. And we got a question from Kaya Raid. What do companies generally do with that tracking information once they gather it?
I mean, so sometimes we hear people say, oh, I have nothing to hide. So privacy isn't about hiding information. It's more about protecting your information. They can track, if you've opened an email, when you've opened an email, where you're located. They can, when you see ads follow you around the internet, they know about you. And with this information, they can also create filter bubbles, for example. So you might search for one string of words in a query in one search engine, and you might get results based on what they know about you. And you search in another search engine, like ours, and you might get we avoid that filter bubble. In some cases, you might say, well, I actually enjoy that they know something about me, but those filter bubbles, as you may know, they kind of obscure reality in some cases, and we want to be sure that everybody has this equal opportunity to not have filtered results just because somebody has tracked you behind the scenes without you knowing.
Great, thank you, and thanks for the questions, everyone. They're still coming in. Cameron M says, I'm going to read this backwards a little bit. So great talk. I love seeing privacy-focused companies finally starting to take the main stage. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And the question is, I'm curious as to what DuckDuckGo's internal design to development handoff is like. Do you have an internal design system, any sort of design operations team or process?
Yeah, we don't have a specific design systems team. Maybe we will once we're a little bit bigger, but we do have what we call areas of responsibility. So we make sure we have experts responsible for at least defining some rules, making sure there's a workflow. But we're all really it offers guidance to everybody else in the organization and best practices to use that design system well, and let us know if a new component needs to be created. But we do have a design system, and it's also getting more refined as we are building new products and features, and that's worked really well. And I think in terms of the handoff, we try to not have a handoff because we want to be sure that developers are already a stakeholder in the work that we're doing. So when we define a problem and we kick off a project, we make sure that we have stakeholders from copywriting, research, engineering, all involved in that kickoff. Again, it avoids the surprises later. It helps us do our best work. But aside from that, it kind of goes back to some roles in organizations are treated like a service. Like, oh, hey, we need copy now, or oh, hey, we need design now. Oh, now we need an illustration or an animation. And this kind of mindset of not having a handoff, it helps them too. It helps them be treated with respect and make sure the value of their craft is involved at the right time as well. And I might be reading into what you mean by handoff, because there's going to be a conversation between what we create and then making sure that when we do a handoff, we kind of have a gut check. Like we have a product review at the end of design phase or exploration, and then we have another product review before something goes live. In the product review at the end of design, it's really used to make sure, have we caught all the edge cases? Now, if we know, that we're approaching the problem in a way that we're all satisfied with, that means we can also more effectively scope the engineering and prioritize that with all the other things that we're building at the time. So that handoff it's really more used to say, do we know how we're building this thing, and are we using kind of the right resources and timing to do it?
Great, thank you. And we've had a couple of questions come in. I'm going to read this one from Ivy Gracie first, because it takes off on that one. There's any suggestions on how to change that handoff mindset?
Well, for us, it's making sure the right stakeholders are in the room when we kick off a project. And even sooner, when we're this is there could be a really long answer in this for how your whole organization and teams are structured. But our teams we're approaching a number of objectives for the company, and in those objectives we have a cross-functional team. So we feel really united cross-functionally to be reaching these goals together. We all know the why behind what we're doing and what we're going to achieve. And I think in the least, if that's the case, then let's say a developer needs to pick something up. Maybe even somebody had to go on vacation, and this project gets dropped in their lap. At least we have created these foundational elements with the mission and the objectives, where the goal is clear, and it's so much easier and motivating to do something that might even be a surprise when you know the why behind it.
Mm-hmm. Great. And I'm just going to read the response here from Cameron quickly. Cameron says, great to hear. I like the non-siloed approach. I'm a front-end dev, so it's awesome to hear that devs are included in the entire conversation. I just want to say, hey, welcome to Cameron. There's a lot of designers here. Obviously, it's a UX day, but I love seeing people from other functional areas participate in these events. You're always welcome at UXPA Minnesota events, by the way. So glad to have you here. And then we have a question from Dante Vono. Looks like DuckDuckGo generated over 100 million in revenue last year. Is that mostly from search ad revenue? How do advertisers know they're reaching their audience when DuckDuckGo keeps user data private? Great question.
Yeah. I mean, I can't necessarily comment on the exact breakdown of the revenue, but I can talk to the second part of that question. How can I approach this quickly? So search advertisers, they primarily buy search ads by bidding on keywords, not people. And that's how a search result was traditionally returned, and that's known as contextual advertising. This other layer has kind of been put on top, where those results are refined based on what you know. So we can still deliver something, an accurate ad, but we do that based on a keyword only, and not based on what's in their email, what websites are they visiting. So the accuracy we have is based on, you search for I don't know, a Nike sneaker, and maybe we can give you ads for sneakers. So they might not be super refined, but that's also the trade-off that you make too.
All right, great, thanks. If there are any other questions, throw them in there. We got 10 more minutes with Holly to chat. Otherwise, our next talk is not until 10:15 Central Time. So if there's anyone else that has questions, otherwise, Holly, I don't know if these questions have brought up any additional thoughts, anything that you want to add.
Well, I do want to say if you do have more questions later, because I've really just kind of scratched the surface in terms of collaboration and hiring, and even formalizing and documenting your process, or I could talk about organizing your teams and your greater company even more. So please do reach out to me on Twitter, Haber, and then haber@duck.com. Can write these in the chat as well, because like I said, really barely scratched the surface here. I'm gonna write these in the chat to everyone.
Okay, great. So yeah, everyone, make sure you reach out to Holly. Let's give her a silent round of applause and thank her for her time. Really appreciate it, Holly. Lots of great,
thank you so much.
Lots of thankful comments in the chat.
Bearing with my voice today as well.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here. Glad you could make it. We're gonna hit the stop recording button now. We'll take a break. Let me share my screen and just remind everyone where we're at right now. So we are done with our keynote talk, and we'll be taking a slightly longer break now until 10:15. So we'll keep the call going. You can just keep this window up if you want or rejoin. And at 10:15, we will be coming back to Jonathan Mann and Lisa Maynard, talking about how you can design trust in algorithms.
Feel free to go get some coffee and come back in. This Zoom URL is open all day, so we'll just keep this running. Awesome.